So Matt, just a quick background of our guest today. He was a sports writer for Rappler since 2013, a sports reporter as well since 2015, and he's also, a host of a podcast. No, he hosts the podcast The Navs Effect, and he also formerly hosted At the Buzzer,
Mm.
basically a Rappler produced podcast as well before. No, and you know what, Matt, author din to.
Wow.
Um, being
Writer.
Ateneans, Matt, medyo hindi ako agree sa book niya, right? He wrote Nowhere to Go But Up,
Ala.
how a basketball team inspired a nation, right? And I believe this was inspired when UP broke our hearts, no? And the UAAP, I think that was like 2 years ago, no? So that hurt me a lot, no? And of course, as a sports fanatic, right? He's also a huge fan of the Miami Heat. So without further ado, Matt, let's bring in Naveen Ganglani, right? For Rappler, and not just Rappler, no, he's all around, no, talking to us about the life of our sports multimedia. Navs, welcome to the show.
Hey guys,
Hello,
what's
hello,
up?
Navs.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I
The-
appreciate it. I appreciate the kind intro. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Basically, our show today, unlike your usual content, Navs, no, we want to hyper focus on your career, right? Because that's what we do here in the Project Offbeat podcast, diba? So I guess I want to start, right? Talk to us about your career, Navs, no. When people search you in Google, ang daming types of content, right? You're everywhere, right? I mentioned in the intro, you write book, you talk in a podcast, right? You do interviews and you break news in Twitter, right? So all of it in this media spectrum, saan ka nag-umpisa, right? How did you start, right? And then how did you transition or maybe evolve your medium into these different platforms?
Okay, so I've always been an NBA fan growing up.
Mm,
I've also always been a UAAP fan growing up. So when you're a fan of sports growing up, then 100% you follow media practitioners of the sports that you like, right? So growing up, I was a huge fan of, like Adrian Wojnarowski and how he would break news. Eventually, Shams Charania and how he would break news. But I was also a fan of other areas of sports media and media in general. Like, for example, I used to love reading those long form profiles that would be written by Lee Jenkins, who was with Sports Illustrated, and he's now part of the Clippers front office. But his writing was absolutely incredible. The way
yep.
he would profile someone, and that was something I always wanted to do. I always knew I wanted to break news the way that Woj did it, the way that Shams did it. I was also a fan of podcasts. So I would listen, and I still listen to Bill Simmons's BS
Really?
podcast
Yeah.
back when it
Okay.
was on ESPN. Now that it's in the ringer, I've added some new podcasts that I listen to in my collection, like Zach Lowe's Low Post, the Hoop Collective with Brian Windhorst and Tim
Yep.
McMahon and Tim Bontemps. And obviously, I'd also read like articles by guys who would cover the Miami Heat. So guys like Ethan J. Skolnick, Tim
Yep.
Reynolds, Ira Winderman, Barry Jackson. So I used to consume a lot of different content from media people growing up with the leagues that I enjoyed. So wala pa dyan, like I used to watch NFL growing up to UAP. I didn't really follow a lot of the local media people, at least not until I got into the local media scene. But I would read a lot of the guys I mentioned, follow their work, and I just knew that what all of them were doing was something that I wanted to do as well. I also, because like right now, I also do video reports, pre-game, post-game video reports. So I used to watch
Mm,
how Stephen A. Smith would do reports for ESPN back in the day. I would watch debate shows like First Take. Well, back in the day, now it's just too toxic for me, so I don't watch those debate shows anymore. But back in the day, when they would actually debate like fundamentals of sports and the intricacies, that would get me really interested. So when I was blessed and fortunate enough to enter the media scene, particularly sports, my number one philosophy that I wanted to always follow, and thankfully I still follow until today, is I let my passions direct what I do, or I let my passions determine what goals and ambitions I want to have. So back in the day when I was thinking, okay, do I want to be a writer? Do I want to be do I want to do video reports? Do I want to be on camera work? Do I want to do one-on-one interview sit downs? I want to do podcasts. The answer was I want to do everything. And
Damn.
over over time I've met people who would be intimidated by that, or who would be scared by that, just taking on all those responsibilities, doing all of them. And a part of me was intimidated as well. Part of me
Yeah.
would be scared. But the the part of me that would be intimidated or a little fearful was overwhelmed by the excitement and by the passion that I had for what I would get to do. And
Yep.
ultimately that's always what won out. And I figured,
Mm,
if I'm doing this for fun, if I'm doing this because I love it, then I shouldn't be hesitant to pursue what I want to do, to pursue the
Yep.
passions that I want. And that really has just driven me all these years. I've been in the media scene for about 10 years now. So there were different stages. At first I started as a as a copywriter.
Wow.
And then yeah, and then I would become a features contributor. I would write profiles, and then I became a beat reporter. And then slowly, and then when I got into the field, I started posting on social media. So all the areas that I take part in now, that I try to do content, and the kind of work I try to do now, that just kind of gradually added more and more over time. And what I am proud to say that I did was, as I took on more responsibilities and started doing more multimedia work, I always also wanted to make sure that I would stay true to the areas that got me in to begin with. So writing, posting news on social media. So with all of that considered, I just tried to, have a foot in everything, and just try to produce content which I thought would be suitable for the topic. So, like for instance, nowadays when I come up with content, and first I ask myself, okay, what's the topic of the content, right? Would it be like, for example, UP's rise to the championship? Would it be the way Ateneo won a game? Would it be the way the Miami Heat won a game? Would it be um, something PBA? It could be anything and everything, right? Then I ask myself, okay, what's the best medium for this? Should I write about it? Should I produce a social media video about it? Should I talk about it in detail in the podcast? Should I just post stuff on social media updates? Now, sometimes that's dictated by how much time I have in a day. Because, truth be told, all the work I do in media is actually my part-time job. It's just my second job, because my main job, my
oh,
first job, is I help my dad run our family business. So that's really my
oh,
main
Wow.
job. So
That's
everything else,
interesting. Hmm.
all the media stuff is like my second job, which again, I'm thankful to have. Very fortunate to do so. But at the same time, also, I will boast a little bit, because juggling all those jobs requires effort and
Yeah.
patience and energy, right? And
mm,
I'm happy to say that I've been able to provide all of that to make all of it happen.
wow. First of all, I don't know where to start. Pero like just from this conversation alone, I can tell that Navs is a really well-spoken guy. Like, wow, he kind of compiled all of that and condensed it into such a digestible piece of information about how he runs his life and his passions. No, I guess I question that I have is more of siguro what sets you apart in terms of your reporting style, because obviously it's one thing to consume people's content, like, oh, I listen to this person, I listen to that person, I hear what he has to say, pero I guess in terms of um your tone and your personality, how do you show that in this kind of field? No, I could argue na, oh, isn't it just breaking news, as in like they traded for this one, or
Yeah.
this player decides to retire or something like that. Isn't it
Yeah.
very cut and dry naman? So I guess that's what I want to ask.
Yeah.
um
Matt, I wanna take a stab on that before Navs, because I'm following of Mavs, no.
how's the game?
Uh I don't know, man. At least for me, pinafollow ko naman PBA, right? Their pages and all, but they always hide their news behind articles, right? So when you want something, it's not even in the headline, Matt. It's not even in their poster and whatnot. No, so it's so hard for someone that's just scrolling through social media to get
Mm-mm.
what they want to know, right? Meanwhile, Navs do it like he said, no, Woj, medyo Woj style, right? Big poster, just a picture of the player, breaking news, and then whatever he saw or whatever he got in the news, no. That's I think how it is for me. I like the breakdowns as well, Navs, especially when you do it with Miami. I mean, honestly, I saw the breakdown you did for Thomas Bryan being the backup. No, it feels like a hit on Dwayne Dedmon and his skills before, right? But yeah, I like it with the short clips, 'di ba? Kuha mo agad lahat ng kailangan mo in that tweet, no, or in that post. So I guess that's what I like about your way of reporting, Navs, no. But I don't know, behind the scenes, Navs, how do you do it, no? Or how what's your model or what's your values to breaking news and doing reports?
Well, okay, so let's go at it one by one. First, when I was asked what sets me apart, I'm guessing that question means what sets me apart from everybody else, right? The answer to that is nothing sets me apart from everybody else, because
Mm.
everything I'm doing, everybody else is capable of doing the same.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you put in the
Interesting.
time, the effort, and most importantly, if you have the passion and desire to do it, then you can do
Mm-hmm.
anything that you want. Now, there are challenges along the way, both professional and human challenges along the way that you will have to navigate through. But if your will is strong enough, I think you can do what you set out to do, no matter the field that you're in. So that's number one. Number two, I was fortunate in the sense that my first ever sports editor when I got into Rappler is a guy by the name of Ryan Songalia, who isn't your
Mm.
typical sports editor here in the Philippines. Why is that? Because Ryan grew up in New York, New Jersey to be specific, and he'd been a journalist for the New York Daily News. So the reason
Big
why I
shot.
think Ryan, my editor, and I connected right away was because he grew up in the States. So he grew up in the States style of reporting and sports media. His specialty was boxing, to be specific. He would cover Pacquiao's fights all the time. And because I grew up consuming that kind of sports media content the way they did it in the States, I gravitated towards him too. And it was an immediate connection. And because I spent so much time with him, because he was my editor, I learned a lot from him too. Like one of the things he would love to tell me back in the day when I'd submit an article that was inadequate was, "You're writing scared, write with some balls." He would That's the kind of lingo that we would like have with each other, because that's how, that's the friendship that we developed. It was more than just editor and writer. It was an actual friendship where he could speak like that to me and I could take it not personally, because I knew what his intention was, which was to come up with great results for the outlet that we were working for, which was Rappler. Now, I was also fortunate because when I joined Rappler, Rappler was innovative at the time that I joined them, the early 2010s. At
Yep.
that point, it's hard to imagine now with the advancement of technology and multimedia content creation. But back then, there was still a feeling of traditionalism with media. So, written articles,
Correct.
not a lot of reporting through phones yet. Everything would have to be done through a proper camera, tripod, the way it was done back in the day, which is still done today, to be fair. But just today, we also have mobile journalism to add to that, right? And what does mobile journalism entail? Excuse me, sorry. That includes, blow by blow updates on social media, particularly Twitter, now X. Now you can add Instagram and Facebook to that list as well, even TikTok, with reels and whatnot. But so back in the day when I joined Rappler, Rappler was really one of the first organizations, and I would say the most innovative organization when it came to utilizing your cell phone and utilizing mobile journalism to provide updates and reports. So because I was in that stratosphere, I was trained early in that regard. and I was I was already an avid user of my phone back in the day because, like I said, I followed the way US media did it, and I
Yeah.
knew that they were already utilizing mobile journalism, particularly Woj with how he'd break news on Twitter. So I gravitated towards that and I leaned on that. And because of that, I think that training early in my career really helped me out. And again, going back to my editor, shout out to him because a lot of editors, especially when you're in the early stages of your media career and you have these goals and things you want to try out, a lot of editors might not let you do that, right? Like, for example, a lot of
Mm,
editors in your early stages might not let writers write opinion pieces or features because they haven't been in the field long enough yet. Um,
interesting.
my editor, Ryan, was not like that. In fact, he pushed me to think outside of the box, to come up with unique ideas, to do profiles even if I was new. He let me make mistakes and learn at the same time while trying to go for my goals and what I wanted to do, and I'm thankful to him for that because more than anything, experience is your best teacher, right? When you're out there in
Yep,
the field,
for sure.
when you're out there talking to people.
Yeah. Siguro, just what's your process of putting up together a post, no? Whether it be in
Okay.
X or where it be in Facebook. For example, kay Jeron Teng, no? From where your source would be, don't need to mention the source, and how you posted it to your following, no? How did that happen? What's your process there?
So Geronteng Newsbit, for example, I I got wind of that because I saw someone post about it. Someone who's close to Geron post about it. So the
Ooh.
moment that I saw that posted, and also like I got a call the night before yesterday,
Mm-mm.
um, from a source, a friend who told me, okay, something might be happening the next day. Just stay stay ready in case it happens. And so once that happened, the first thing I did was use the picture that was posted by this person, source them properly when I shared it,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
then I also messaged my editor, Jason, a friend of mine, who also does some graphic editing
Mm.
using online platforms. So he came up with a little something, and then before I posted it, by the way, also sometimes when he's not available, I go to like Canva or even something simple like Visco and just try to make a quick edit.
Yep.
My mindset there is that it doesn't need to be 1000% beautiful. It just needs to be
Agree.
efficient.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm.
Fast,
Always better done than perfect, right?
Yep.
Especially in the world now where back in the day people would say quality over quantity. And I still think
Ganda.
quality is more important over quantity. But I think now in the world of social media and when you where you have so many things happening and so much content coming in at the same time, quantity is important as well because that will allow you to just stay up there in terms of being like a go-to source of news or whatever your team is, your brand is. So once that picture was ready, I called a friend of mine, a source of mine. I just got the details about what happened. It was about like a 5-7 minute call. So I asked questions like, okay, so how long is the contract? How many years is it? um, which other teams were interested? What was his motivation for choosing San Miguel? Why that team?
Yeah.
Oh, because his dad played for
Ooh.
that team before. Okay, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I got
Mm-hmm.
that bit of information too. So yeah, it's just getting no first question you have to ask yourself is, okay, do I know the important information that I want to find out? So once you have that, then it becomes easier to try and get that information because knowing is half the battle. Once you know what you want and once you know what you're trying to get, then the next step
Ganda.
is making a path to getting that information because you already know
Yeah.
what you want anyway. Like almost anything in life, if the first step is always knowing. Once you know and you realize what your goal is, what you're trying to achieve, and you keep that goal the main thing, like the great Pat
Yeah.
Riley says, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Once you know that,
Mm.
then it becomes easier to come up with objective steps towards garnering that information.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
appreciate that you actually do validation. Like in a world where everyone's naguunahan, you actually called whoever this guy is. Could be Jaron's friend, could be Jaron's circle or SME circle, right? And you actually called them, right? So it makes me think whenever trade season in the NBA and Woj and Shams are going head on head, they always have like a short sentence at the end of each tweet na this is the reason why this guy signed with this team. And I can't help but think, fuck, man, how hard is it to validate all of those things? Diba? I think siguro dati pa nila meron yung info na yun, right? Because that's a lot of news uh, spread out in one short time range, diba?
Eh, syempre the
So,
team
yeah.
wants to keep it hush-hush also, 'di ba? So,
Oo, may
oo.
mga ganon, may mga politics, right? May mga corporations that will shut the media off, diba? So I appreciate it. Thanks for validating your post, you know?
Yeah, and also just to add to that, a lot of times the information that you get isn't information you get at one go, right? So when you're chasing a
Mm.
story or a piece of news that you want to report, that sometimes that's weeks or days of calls, of constant communication, of fine. It's almost like building a puzzle.
Mm.
So you have this board and you need the pieces to fit. So eventually you get the full story. So different days, different weeks, you'll get like a few pieces of the puzzle. Then you'll have the border like all around. And then some days
Galing,
it's you get it all in one go. So
galing.
there's really like no one step formula to achieving it every single
Yeah.
time. And that's something that you just kind of have a grasp of or you learn once you've been
Hmm.
in the field for a bit.
Awesome shit. Navs, I want to ask, no, let's just say, for example, yung kay Jaron Teng signing with San Miguel, right? Was it intentional that you sort of maybe followed people or the circles of these players prior? Or sinerte ka lang, you know, it just happened upon you, you know this guy and this guy was able to, break some news there or maybe at least just post it in their Instagram or whatnot, no? Meron ba kayong mga ganun, like accounts that follows everyone, all the friends of Jeron Teng or all the friends of SMC, right? Para mauna ka sa mga ganitong news.
Um I not necessarily like follow and like have this like deep network of sources just related to like Jeron Teng, for example. It's well without revealing too much of like my style or my process. Um it's really relationship building over the years.
Mm. Mm.
And once you build relationships with certain people,
Yep.
it really goes a long way. Like for example, nowadays, even when I go to the games or the arenas or when I meet um strangers who know me for my work, see my social media posts, consume my content, they tell me, "Wow, you're so good at breaking news or gathering information. How do you do it?" People probably
Yeah.
want to tell you, and obviously, I'm very thankful for the kind words. I'm very grateful that I'm in this position where people see me as an outlet where
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
can get their updates in sports. But it doesn't happen overnight at all.
Mm.
Like I tell the people closest to me, where I am now. And by the way, I still think I have ways to go in terms of like living up to what people say, like you're the Woj or you're Shams, or like I don't think I'm anywhere close to that yet. To be honest, I feel like I still have ways to go. I have so much work to do before I even get close to that. And even if I do get to a point where I feel I'm worthy of that recognition, I don't want to be like Woj or Shams. I want to be me. It's like I
Mm.
want to
Navs, you got
yeah, I want to be
Navs,
me.
right?
I want to be me. And now, don't get me wrong. If like years ago when I was still in college, someone told me like you would be compared to like these people, I would first of all I wouldn't believe it 1,000% no. And but then like I would be so humbled about it, and I still am so humbled about it. Don't get me wrong. But then at the same time, I guess it comes with age, where now I think about it and I'm like, I just want to be me. I just want to be
Beautiful.
me. I want to do things because I want to do it, not because I feel like I have to do it. I do what I do because I love it, because it's my passion, not because I want to build up a certain reputation or brand. And having that mindset over the years has really, I think, guided me to where I am now. And so far, knock on wood, I I guess I could say that it's worked to some degree for me, and that's what I'm going to keep pushing for. Just being driven by my passion and ambition more than anything, and not for the recognition, not for the praise, not for the not for the love even. Maybe love, yes, but love for what I do more than anything. And back to the original point I was saying, it took a while. First few years, when I tried to gather news, when I tried to gather reports, breaking stuff, there were a lot of days there where messages would be left on red. I
Mm-mm.
wouldn't get calls back, or people
Grabe.
would ask me, "Who the hell are you?
Right.
Sino ka ba? But
Yeah.
but but ka nagme-message?" Stuff like that. Thankfully nowadays it's less, because now I guess a lot of people have seen my work in different mediums, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes relationship building.
Mm-mm.
Being like in any industry, in any field of life, in my opinion, how well you work with people is going to help determine how far you go, because that's just the
Yep.
truth of the matter, right?
For sure.
Even if you're an individual content creator, well, you're not just going to make content by yourself the whole time. You're going to collaborate with other people at certain stages, or you're
Mm-mm.
going to come up with partnerships with different people in certain stages. So how well you work with others will help determine how far you get to. Like, I heard this one time in an interview done by Colin Cowherd, another media practitioner in the US. And he said, some of the most important conversations about you are going to happen when you're not in the room. Probably like 80 to 90%, right? And you can't control what people are going to say about you. And I can tell you right here, right now, that there are conversations about me in rooms where people aren't saying the nicest or best things about me. Like, I'm just going
Yeah.
to keep it 100 here. Like, that 100% happens. But I'd also like to think there are conversations in some rooms where I'm being talked about, where there are people who I've built friendships with over the years, and I can say that they have my back. And for that, I'm
Yeah.
super duper thankful. That to me means more than like any piece of breaking news or any kind of
Yeah.
content I put out there. Because, like, for example, okay, in my opinion, the biggest news I ever broke was the night that Francis Lopez committed to the UP Fighting Maroons, right?
Just this year.
Because he was previous,
Yeah.
yeah, that was this year. To me, that was still like the biggest news I've ever chased. But 10, 20 years from now, are people going to remember that I broke that news? Perhaps. I would like to think so. But are people going to remember me more for how I treated them and the relationships I had with them? 100% yes. And that to me is what's important.
Navs, I'm gonna make like this, like a mean joke, but I don't take it personally.
Go lang, go lang.
Pero how I see, yeah, not just you know, but like si Sham, si Woj, kind of like a professional marites. Alam mo yung tipong relationship building, then through the years, you get to know these stories, then you break the stories to people. Alam mo yun, yung parang chismis na ewan.
And
But,
people want
you
to tell
know,
you stuff. No? Kaya siya
yeah,
marites eh.
exactly. Exactly
People
my
want to
point.
tell you stuff.
Sometimes they don't.
Oo nga. Tapos people might get angry at you kasi, ay, why is he so curious? Why is he asking me? Ganon. I mean, it's sort of like a professional marites. I don't know if you agree, no? Pero, um, yun. I guess my question here is, you talked about the best story that you've reported on. Siguro, my question is, what's the most unusual story? What's the quirkiest rumor that you've heard and had to investigate and report on?
um,
Maybe
Kahit
Jimmy
na,
Jimmy
kahit na ano
Butler's
siya, kahit na false news siya or you never got to report it. Just something that you had to go
oh well,
into the rabbit hole.
first of all, I should say,
Yeah.
out of everything I hear or the news that I gather, I probably only report like 30 to 40%. And the other 60,
Ooh.
because the other
grabe, no?
60% are off the record or kept low key. So that's an interesting topic, but that's a topic for another day. The quirkiest I would say was early in my career when Mika Reyes and Kiefer Ravena started dating each other,
Oh, did they?
Mhm.
and they
Really?
had,
Yeah.
yeah, they had. I think they had broken up, and we had to do a story about it because at that point everyone was like just digesting content and articles about, because they were like both were like high profile UAP athletes. So I'll never forget. I had to call Kiefer one time. I had to ask him, "So what's the latest with you and Mika?" People are saying this and that, and I was just so like
Yeah.
shy and like so I was cringing a little bit while I was doing it, but I wouldn't say I had to do it, but it was something that as a publication we felt like we had to do because it was, whether we like to admit it or not, even in sports, people, fans are very interested in the personal lives of the athletes, and
Yeah.
a huge portion a huge portion of professional lives is who's dating who, especially if you're
Mm-mm.
dating another athlete. So
Yeah.
I spoke to Kiefer on the phone. I remember we laughed about it for like 1 minute, how I had to ask him this question because he was so used at that point to me asking about basketball questions or UAP. Then I wrote the article about it. It's probably the first ever article I wrote that I didn't want to tweet out right away. That hey, new, because normally when I have a new article, I'll tweet it out. Okay, wrote this piece. Ganyan. I think it took me like a few hours before I finally tweeted it out. And even my text and my tweet, I can't remember right now, but it was something like, "Yes, cannot believe I'm doing this, but here's the update." And so I think that's what comes to mind right away.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting time.
I mean, so far from the years that I've followed you, panay sports news naman, right? Romantics,
Thankfully.
I haven't seen one, right? So great. That's a very cool story, no. Siguro, my next question, Navs, is you said you've been doing this for 10 years now, right? Maybe Rappler, maybe, basically here in this media industry, like I want to ask, what's a good thing about doing media work, no? Multimedia work, all kinds of medium, no, in the Philippine setting, right? You mentioned a lot of your, you attribute a lot of your success to your predecessors and those people that trained you in a Western mindset, right? But now you're breaking news for the UAAP, NCAA, PBA, right? Panay Pinoy leagues, right? With Pinoy fan bases, right? So what's the great thing about doing work here, and also perhaps what is the hard thing about doing media work here in the Philippines?
Well, the fun part of it, number one, is first of all, the games are amazing. Not all games are amazing. Some are blowouts.
I agree.
Some are frankly kind of boring or uneventful. But then there are games like last night's LaSalle UP game that was incredible. You could feel the
Damn,
passion in the crowd. You could feel
damn.
the excitement. You could feel the energy, the atmosphere. You could feel hearts beating at like different speeds all at the same time. I can see people sweating, some people crying at the games, and sports just brings out so many different emotions in all of us throughout the game, a match, a contest. And I've always felt that sports has been a great avenue, a great medium to really show you the differences in human emotions and human feelings. And I've always enjoyed that part of it. And obviously, there are other areas that are fun too. Game winners,
Yeah.
comebacks, collapses, post game quotes, excitement, meltdowns. There are so many layers to it to unpack that you can just really take what you want and see what kind of content you can come out with it. Challenges. Well, sometimes people on social media can be quite a handful. um,
Especially
they can be,
Pinoy, man.
they
Pinoy,
can,
grabe.
like,
Grabe.
frankly, some of them are a pain in the ass. And some of them were a pain in the ass do so with just like the dumbest, um, misinformed, sorry, I shouldn't say dumb. Okay, I apologize for that. I will, let's be nicer. Let's say misinformed and irrational opinions and thoughts and assumptions, right? Like,
Yep.
for a lot of, so a lot of times the media is like the messenger between the at in sports. The media is the messenger between the athletes and the fans to some degree. So what the athletes say, what the coaches say, the media reports, and then the fans react, or the fans have something to say as well. So because of that, it's easy sometimes to blame the media or to use the media as an avenue to release your emotions, frustrations. It works the other way to excitement and happiness.
Yeah. Is
Yeah,
it
yeah, and
scapegoat kind of thing? Yeah.
sometimes, or parang, for example, let's say like yesterday, LaSalle was playing good first half, right? So obviously,
Yep.
I'm gonna give like my observation and analysis, and I'll say LaSalle's playing well in the rebounding. This guy's playing well. The team's energy is coming really well, and then UP makes a comeback in the second half and panalo UP, and then fans were messaging me after kasalanan mo to. Then they used the word kulam, KULAM.
Yeah.
You jinx the
Jininx
team,
mo.
ganyan, ganyan.
Jininx mo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like yeah, sure, 10 players playing on the court, 12 to 15 players playing in each team, coaches preparing, months of preparation. But sure, because I tweeted something, I'm the reason why LaSalle lost. Diba? So it makes absolute great sense. But then that's
Yeah.
why the word fan is fanatic, right? When you're a fanatic, sometimes you aren't thinking rationally, you're
Yep.
not thinking
Yep.
logically. You're sometimes you're driven by emotions. And there are times those emotions can lead to people saying harmful words or um, being frankly a little rude. But it also comes with the territory. And if you work in media and you're going to be a reporter, particularly for sports, you can't have thin skin. You need to be able to process
Yep.
the information that you see and have perspective that,
Yep.
when people are saying like rude stuff about you, it's not exactly you that they're pertaining to, because they don't know you. You can't know who someone is, their personality is,
Mm-mm.
in social media. And those who feel like they can assume your whole personality or who you are based on what you tweet without having met you ever in real life, it doesn't, it's not efficient. It's not accurate. You're never going to
Mm-mm.
get an idea of who someone is completely unless you've spent a lot of time with them in person. But of course, in
Agree.
social media, where you can be a keyboard warrior, say what you want to say without seeing someone in the face directly,
Yep.
talking to them eye to eye, people feel a little emboldened sometimes. Lalo na if you can
Yep.
hide your real name, if you can be like a
Yep.
bot and you don't even have to
Mm-mm.
put your picture there. So what I've done recently is I've actually stopped looking at my notifications and mentions on Twitter, for example, during a game. And once in a while, yeah, sure, I look at it to see what people want to like talk about, or where people have concerns, or where people what topic people are really into, because that can sometimes help determine what kind of reporting I should go after, because it's knowing what people want to hear about, right?
Yep.
But in terms of those replying, responding, no. Like, my mindset about it too is, okay, if for 10 years now I've done this, and every time I'm, reporting or out there in the field, I'm saying what I say by putting my name out there and putting my actual face out there, my profile picture, putting a name
Mm.
and a face um, to my social media platforms and saying what I have to say, then why on earth should I respond to you or take what you have to say seriously if you're not going to put your real name and your real face out there, right? If you don't
Ooh.
Mm.
have like the guts to put your
Yeah.
actual name and face out there, then you don't that doesn't justify a response from me. Like, I'm
Yep.
sorry
Right.
if anyone's going to be affected by that, and I don't mean to like hit anyone or make them feel less about themselves, but
Yep.
it's just how I feel.
Yep.
I've been doing this long enough that everything I write, everything I post, everything I
Mm-mm.
tweet has my actual name. I put my name there and I put my face there. So if you're going to respond to me, for example, and just like be straight up rude or be an ass sometimes, real talk,
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
then not only am I not going to not respond to you, I'm also not going to take anything that you say seriously, because if you're hiding behind the face of, uh, whatever picture you have or whatever made up name you have, then I just I don't take what you have to say that seriously.
Truth. Truth. Is that a confirmation that you don't have a burner account, Naps?
I do not
Like,
I do
like,
not have a burner account. No.
Of course, he
like
will
I
say
KD.
no. Of course,
KD
he will
I
has,
say
I,
no.
I have a private account like on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
I have an
Okay.
Instagram for my work, and I have an Instagram from, family
Personal
and
life. Yeah.
friends. Yeah,
Yeah.
personal life. Like I try to separate them as much as I can. Facebook also, I have a private Facebook and I have a Facebook page
Mm-mm.
for my news updates. But yeah, burner accounts, nah, I mean,
Yeah. I know,
nah.
right? I know, right? Yeah.
I would make like when I was in high school and college, I'd make like fan accounts of like NBA, for example. Like I once made a Twitter account just to follow Miami Heat people and just to
Yeah.
tweet during games.
Yeah.
But then that
Mm-mm.
lasted like what, 2 3 months, and then I got tired of it.
Yep. Yep.
And then yeah, it's just never been my thing.
Awesome. Awesome. Sige, I want to attack Navs on the multimedia front that you do, no? Could you take us through maybe just a rough gist, no? How long do you spend in doing your podcast in Navs Effect? In breaking news in Twitter, of course, and not just breaking news, breaking down the highlights, right? Sharing facts there, sharing new rumors, and also I think you also write, right? You also write for Rappler, SB Nation, and even you wrote a book. No, how do you split this in terms of your time spent on it, right? And why is that so?
Well, I really use my calendar app on my MacBook Pro to help me schedule things. And
Mm,
on top of all of that as well, I still want to have a personal life, right? I still have
yep.
relationships in my life with family and friends that I want to keep up with. I have a basketball league that I join and play. I play hoops like 2 to 3 times a week. I try to work out every day if I can. I have a
Wow.
bowling league also I'm a part of. I have a few fantasy leagues I'm a part of. So basically, like right now, almost like every Sunday when I look at my schedule for the upcoming week, it's like Monday to Sunday. Usually, puno na yan. It's full na. Um, so one of the things I've started doing recently has been to start waking up earlier, just to add more hours to my day. Now I've sacrificed some sleep for that. Typically, I like sleeping like on in a perfect world, I'd be sleeping like 9 to 10 hours a night.
Impossible.
Impossible, yeah. Like I love staying up and doing things, but now that I'm like 30 years old, in the past few years, I've also started to love sleeping and just resting my mind. It wasn't always the case. When I was a kid, I would sleep like 4 or 5 hours a night. There were some college nights I wouldn't sleep at all, and just because I wanted to keep doing things, I wanted to watch shows, I wanted to play games, video games. Also tried, I tried to play video games. I used to play a lot more now, not so much. I also do content because on the side for video games, for movies, for TV. I do film reviews sometimes too. But of course, recently with the FIBA World Cup and with UAAP, sports has taken up a lot of my time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just try to schedule everything properly. Like for example,
Mm,
okay, let me look at my calendar right now.
yeah.
So, for example, today, here, 1 p.m. podcast guesting with Offbeat Project with what you guys are doing. After this, I have a writing thing I have to do. After that, I'm gonna go home and get ready for my basketball game tonight. After my basketball
Mm,
game, I have a fantasy draft tonight. And
mhm.
then I'm gonna sleep. And then tomorrow, wake up. I have some family stuff to do. So I just try to schedule everything, manage my time as well as I can.
Yeah.
Then when it comes to determining, okay, when am I going to write? When am I going to make a podcast? When am I going to make social media content? Again, it goes back to what I said about, okay, what's the topic that I have? Let's be intentional about this. So
Mm-mm.
Interesting.
let's say I did an interview with Nick Cabanero of UST the other day. Okay, what's the best medium to do that? Should I talk about it on my podcast? Should I write an article about it? Should I make a video about it?
Yeah. How
Should
do you
I just
decide that?
stick?
How do you decide that? Like if you AP ba matik na yan na they prefer like long form content, no? Or it's your hunch,
Uh,
personal hunch
it's
too.
a hunch. It's a hunch. There are different factors that I weigh pros and cons. Like, for example,
Mm-mm.
okay, what's the best way to reach the audience with this topic? Like, is it something people would enjoy consuming from hearing about it? Or is it something that people would want to read quickly and then go on to another topic, for example?
Yeah.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
So, like the other day, I was talking with Juno Sauler, the head coach of the DLSU Green Archers from 2013 when they won a UAAP championship. So we decided we're going to make content, with the 10-year anniversary of the championship team. It's 2023 now. So once I decided I wanted to look back and look at the stories of the team and how they fought past a slow start in that season to get to the finals and win a championship. I was like, okay, a podcast would probably be the best medium to do that because there would be a lot of stories to share there. And I want to make sure the
Mm.
stories that coach shares would get its proper context, right? So a
Yep.
podcast is the best way to go about it. But like, let's say, for example, yesterday I did a quick interview with Mason Amos of Ateneo. It was like a minute and a half. I'm like, okay, it's a minute and a half. We talked about two things. I'll just make it a social media reel that we can post on
Mm-mm.
Wow.
Rappler and my social media
Yeah.
platform. So there's no one trick to figure it all out. There's no like cheat
Yeah.
sheet to tell you, okay, this. You really just have to go with your hunch, and you just really have to go with what you think is right. And more importantly, you just have to go with what would make you have the most fun while you're doing it.
Interesting. May mga ganong interviews pala, no? Like 1.5 minutes? That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
And
so fast,
yeah,
no?
you'd be surprised how many quotes you can get. Lalo na kung mabilis magsalita yung tao. I mean, you can be
Record agad, no? Record agad yan,
yeah.
dapat, no?
Yeah, there are different
Grabe.
Pero at the
ways.
end of the day, it's you who has the creative control, no, on that end. Like, what output to create and where to release it.
I do. Now, not
Mhm.
everyone does. I am fortunate that I do. I
Yeah.
would like to say I've put myself in a position to be able to have that creative freedom because,
Agree.
you know,
Yeah.
creative freedom is okay. So I'm fortunate because, like I told you guys, on top of my media work, I also have uh, my a, f- a few businesses that I help manage, right? So
Yeah.
that also
Yeah.
helps take care of me to some degree in terms of my livelihood.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because I have that, I do have the liberty to some degree, because of course financial aspects are still very important. So,
Of
but
course.
because
Yeah.
I have that, I do have the liberty to some degree to prioritize creative freedom. Now, I'm
Mm.
also mindful of the fact
Gets.
that not
Gets.
everyone has that. And for
Yeah.
some people who might not have that, they are to some degree required to
Yeah.
pursue a certain type of medium
My
because that's what's
constraints.
needed of
Correct.
them to do the
Yeah.
well, not constraints, maybe more that's what the job requires them to do, and they need the
Okay.
Mm-mm.
job,
Okay.
right? And we
I
all need
see.
jobs. Even I need my jobs. I'm sure you guys feel you need your jobs too.
Yeah.
Whenever anyone who has a job, that's something to be blessed and thankful about, right? Because there are those who might not be so fortunate. So it
Yeah.
really is a matter of person to person, and each person has different experiences, different perspectives, and why they do things. And I think that's one more thing that I've learned just from being in the field for a while, not a while, but at least like a decade at this point. I would say that has some level of substance to it. each person is different. Each person goes through different experiences, has different perspectives, and there's really no one set of rules for everyone that will work for them.
Mm-mm.
Awesome. Sige. I wanna jump off Navs, no. Earlier also you also mentioned na hindi naman lahat ng tao, have that flexibility like you do to do any creative output that you want in what form that you like, no. So it begs the question, at least for our listeners that are trying to, penetrate into this media world, no. When is the right time to work for a media company like Rappler? And when do you know if it's time to maybe pursue your own path, pursue your own medium, 'di ba? Like what you're doing now with your individual based content like Navs Effect, 'di ba? And how you do independent break news right now.
Wow. So I kid you not, as you guys are talking to me right now, I just got an important piece of news and
Oh shit.
information.
Okay.
I
You
think
want to take a break? You want to take a break? You want to take a break?
actually, yeah, let me
Okay.
just make a
Oh,
quick call. I'll be right back.
of course, of course. All right. That is so cool, man. Ano kaya lumabas? I'm so excited to see this tweet. We're back.
Hey
I saw
guys,
it. I
sorry.
saw it, man. I saw it, man. Hey, I saw it. I saw it. Big deal, man. Big deal.
Okay.
Yep,
Sayang.
yep. Pwede nyo
Big
isama yan
deal.
sa recording if you guys want that I had to leave suddenly for
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess as a recap for our listeners, no, we were asking Navs a question, and suddenly, wow, breaking news! What's the breaking news, Navs?
Breaking news. Breaking news.
yeah.
Matt,
So
I'm the one. I want to break it. I want to break it.
go for
Si
it,
sila na
From
lang.
Rans. Go for
Sige,
it.
sige.
yeah, from Naveen Ganglani in Twitter, no.
Oh.
Robert Bolick has decided to cancel his contract with the B League. I
Yes.
think it was due to her wife's pregnancy situation, no. So mukhang may
So
delicate ano doon ah.
yeah,
May
yeah.
nangyari?
So literally as we're recording this, I saw my phone, my missed call. And then I saw my phone, my mga text messages. So I'm like, okay, something's going on. So I checked it,
Yeah.
and then I saw the news that I posted, and I was like, wait lang. That's why I had to like ask you guys if I could leave for a bit. And thank you for
Right.
allowing me to do that. By the way, I appreciate it. But yeah, Robert Bolick, upon his own request, has requested to cancel his contract, and that was a 2-year contract, by the way, 1+1, so 1 year player option. He has asked to cancel his contract with his team in the B League, and that team is I just want to make sure I pronounce this correctly, Fukushima Firebonds. The reason
Yeah.
why I don't know the full details yet, but from what I've gathered so far, excuse me, sorry, is that his wife is pregnant. They are in the first trimester. I don't know what exactly. I was just told that it's a little delicate, and they
Mhm.
are in Japan, both of them. But because Robert is playing in the B League, that would involve home and away games, right? Home and away
Yeah.
games, so he wouldn't be in the city that they're based in all the time. And because they moved there from the Philippines, and his wife has now, I'm just like, this is what I'm gathering, no, or what I'm thinking. I imagine the reason why is because he wouldn't be around all the time, and the pregnancy is a little delicate. They've decided to come back to the Philippines. They're on their way back right now. I believe they're in the airport, to prioritize the health of his wife's child, their child.
Mhm.
He's decided to prioritize their family. And again, I don't know the full story yet, but if that seems to be the main decision why to prioritize their family, and that is a very responsible and
Yeah.
very good choice by Robert, because he's a great basketball player, and I'm sure that it wasn't easy to ask for the contract to be canceled,
Exactly.
considering that he was well compensated for playing for them.
Yep.
But for
Yep.
him
And
to
he's
make the
already in
decision,
Japan. And he's already in
yes, he's
Japan,
already there
'di
too, and he had played
Big
a few
decision.
games for them. So his
Yeah.
decision to prioritize his family, of course, kudos to him for that. To prioritize the health of his child, and hopefully everything is okay. I know Robert. I've known him since he was in La Salle. We've done articles together. I've spoken with him a few times. I'm fortunate to say that more than just a player, he's also someone I consider a friend. So I wish him all the best. I wish his wife all the best. I wish their family all the best. And I wish that they have a successful pregnancy.
Agree, agree. Well, kudos as well to Fukushima, that team, no, for
Yes,
allowing,
yes.
'di ba, for allowing Robert to
Kudos to
actually
them. Yes.
cancel his contract, 'di ba? Ah,
Mm.
wow.
Family over
That's
Grabe.
everything.
exciting, man.
That was
Yeah.
exciting, huh? That was exciting. That's the life. That's the life of Navs and
That's
and
the
sports
that's the
multimedia.
developing story. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Thanks Labs no for giving us like this first this first look into like what is it to be
Yeah.
sports media journalist.
Sige.
I swear again, so sorry about that I had to leave it the podcast recording so suddenly, but thanks for allowing me to do that. And yeah, that is kind of it's not the first time it's happened, ironically. Even while I record my own podcast, I suddenly get like some breaking news sometimes. I'm like, oh wait lang, I'll
Yeah.
tell my guest. Sorry. But yeah, appreciate you guys for allowing me to do that.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Okay. So Nabs, I think we left off by me asking you a question. Uh how do you know, when do you know if it's time to like branch out from your media network? Or you could still work in your media network but maybe create your own path now, create your own medium now. How do you know, no, for our listeners that are maybe perhaps journalists on their own in different organizations, pero ngayon ikaw, 'di ba, multimedia ka na. When is the right time to do that?
Like, there really is no right time. It's just a matter of when you want to do it and sticking with it. So I came up with my podcast. I started my podcast sometime in the pandemic. Mm, and I had known that I wanted to do a podcast before that, but I wanted to make sure I did it when I really wanted to do it. When I thought of guests I could invite, topics I could talk about, when I knew that I could speak for 30 to 40 minutes straight by myself if I had to about different topics, which I'm still learning as well. I wouldn't say I've mastered it yet. I am far away from doing that. So, and I'm not sure if I'm even ever going to do that because there's always something new to learn, something always new to develop. But I did know I always wanted to do it. And sometime in 2020, I felt, okay, you know what? There are a few topics I want to talk about. A lot of people are home because of the pandemic. This would be a good time to branch out and get some good content out there. Look back in stories. No sports events were happening at that time, except maybe the NBA, which was obviously in the United States they had an NBA bubble. But I thought, okay, great time to maybe release this right now. I'm home a lot, so because of the pandemic, I could focus on what I want to get out there, the guests I could invite over. Zoom was becoming a thing. That made it easier to record as well because then we could do it online. And once all those pieces just clicked, I was like, okay, let's do it. And I didn't really even have a plan. You know, some people when they start a podcast, they come up with a huge plan. And kudos to those who do that because I know some podcasters, you two probably do this too. You two, were approach it way more professional than even I do, to be honest with you. You guys sent the
Really?
questionnaire before this episode. Yeah,
Uh
my podcasting game plan has always been okay, find the guest, send them the Zoom link, find the time, and go at it without any outline, without any questions, just have a
Grabe.
conversation.
Shit.
And so that was what I did to start, and it worked for me, in the opening moments of when that podcast came out, and it's just something that I've stuck with because I enjoy it too. I just enjoy having natural conversations with people. Letting the conversation decide where it would go. Now there are times there are certain questions I want to ask and I keep in the back of my mind, obviously, but for the most part, when it comes to podcasting, it was about where can I let this conversation go? Where can it flow into? And I still do that.
Awesome. Awesome. Tough. But I think you actually just do it, no? Nike's just do it, diba? Sometimes it's all about that, diba? I
yeah.
think just enlighten us, Navs. Author wise, you wrote a book.
Yes.
about UP and their championship run, diba? When did that occur to you na, you know what, I could do this, right? You write
So
articles, but this one's a book. This was a book, man.
so the first ever book I wrote was, well, I didn't really finish it. I wrote like 2, 3 chapters. I was 16 years old. Um, I really liked this girl. So to
Oh.
impress her, at that point, right, when you like a girl, you're just like doing different things to try and impress her.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
to impress
wow.
her, I made this like story of of fictional characters, but then obviously the hint was the main guy in the story was me and the main girl in the story was her.
Mm-hmm.
And she was actually my best friend at the time. She's still my best friend. She's also my wife now. So I think something worked
Wow.
there.
There you go. There you go.
Uh, um, so yeah, it was a shout out to Karina. Um, so it worked out. But then yeah, that was the first time. But I was an avid reader growing up. I
Mhm.
read the Harry Potter books. I read all the sports books I could get my hands on. I read nonfiction books as well. Especially, those days pag may brownout, walang electricity,
Mhm.
no TV, no video games, no nothing. Okay, what's my form of entertainment? I'm gonna read a book.
Yeah.
During summers when I was a kid, I would play basketball in the morning. I would come home, eat lunch. I would read the whole afternoon. And I was always a coffee drinker, even when I was a kid. So I would have my coffee, I would read a book. I would love it when it would rain because ang ganda ng vibe. I'm reading a book, coffee. So because I was such an avid reader and because I liked writing when I was young, I told myself, okay, I really want to write a book one day. Then
Mm-mm.
when I became a writer in media, I told myself, okay, I want to try to write my first book before I turn 30 years old. And then, 2018, UP had this incredible run in the UAAP basketball scene where they made the Final Four for the first time in more than 2 decades.
Yeah.
And their story from being a team that won 0 games in a season to having a bonfire for winning 1 win to slowly by slowly developing into a basketball program that turned
Yep.
from, to some degree, like this, they were the cellar dwellers in terms of how they were always in the bottom of the standings. The UP fans at that time wouldn't exactly watch the games. And then I learned more about the behind the scenes story of how they turned things around, how a group of dedicated UP alumni came together to, in their way, give back to the school that gave them so much by helping turn around this basketball program.
Yeah.
Because they felt that if this basketball program would be turned around and they'd be competitive, then a sleeping giant would wake up. And that sleeping giant is what we see in the UAAP games right now. When the UP crowds, the most, right now,
Yep.
I would say the most passionate crowds in UAAP, come to every game, cheer their hearts out, sing their songs, and that didn't happen overnight. There was a lot of work that went on behind the scenes, a lot of inside stories of players and coaches and alumni and management, and how, despite all the challenges they face, raising money just to buy food for the players, raising money, um, getting alumni to sponsor, provide anything they can just to support the team and the system. And it was just to me, it was just a beautiful story of how people behind the scenes came together and made it all happen and turned what was the UP team from 10 years ago, a 0 win team, into what they are now, a championship contender year in, year out. That was a great turnaround. And after that season where UP made the Final Four, so I came out with the book actually 2019, before the pandemic. That's when the book came out. So at that point, they made the Final Four for the first time. And people outside of UP might have been questioning, why are they celebrating so much? It's just like a Final Four appearance, right? They've been losing for so long, but it meant so much more to them. It was something which to them symbolized not just basketball wins, but unity. How people from UP, who, by the way, they have different fraternities, right? When you're from from how it was explained to me, because I didn't go to UP, so I had to try to learn it as much as I can. A lot of
Yeah.
these alumni who came together came from different fraternities, came from different walks of life, different organizations, different industries, And they put all of that aside to unite in helping turn this
Yeah.
basketball program around. And like I told you guys, I watch sports because I love the human aspect of it. I love
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
human aspect of sports, and that unity, that love, that passion. It was something that I found very interesting, and
Mhm.
I am beyond thankful for the relationships I have built with people behind the scenes in UP over the
Yeah.
years, and how they gave me the chance. Someone from LaSalle, they gave someone from DLSU the chance to write the book about how they turned their program around, and
Ganda.
I'm always going to be thankful to them for that.
Yeah.
And I had fun writing that book. I had fun on those long drives, going to different places to interview people integral to that story, and the hours of transcribing, the hours of writing, rewriting,
Mhm.
editing. It was the most,
Shit.
until today, it was the most challenging goal I ever
Grabe.
probably went through. Writing a book is
Grabe.
um, it's there are some challenges along the way, but it's
Yeah.
also so fun along the way. And it's so fun not just because I wrote the book, not just because I accomplished something I always wanted to do, and I've always wanted to write a book about a story worth telling. But it was so
Yeah.
fun because of the people I met along the way, and getting to see how much they love something, which was the
Yeah.
basketball program, and
Yep.
experiencing that. And it's just hard to put into words.
Ganda. And it's
Yeah.
legacy building. Legacy building, to see your name in front of a book. Sold out too, if I may add, Mata. Sold out, no?
Mm.
So that's
I mean,
huge.
I bet.
Pinirmahan pa. Pinirmahan pa, Mata. Grabe.
Actually, when you were telling that story, I was thinking, wait a minute, did this guy graduate from UP? Hindi. Parang DLSU nga siya eh. Why would
Yeah,
he write about like this competitor? Sabi na natin,
exactly.
competitor in the UAP. Tapos
Yeah,
parang, I mean, I guess the human aspect is the one uniting factor of it all, and it's very inspiring in that sense. In terms of in terms of sports in general, no, do you think that um do you think that it ever gets tiring because it's always sort of the same stories but a different combination of factors um okay, this star player gets bitter and gets traded, or there's a rising star all the time. It's just different characters per se. Do you think it ever gets super cyclical in a way, or do you think that there's always something to be garnered from, like there's always a new story to tell?
I think there's always a new story to tell because of the
Mm.
people involved. I think there are different people, different perspectives, different personalities. Now, don't get me wrong. There have been days when I was a reporter where it's a Friday night, my friends are out, they're catching up, high
Yeah,
school reunions, college reunions,
right.
and I'm in a semi-empty arena watching a game between two teams that obviously aren't going to contend. So there have been
Yeah.
days like that, right? Like I'm sure
Mm-mm.
there have been days for different people in different industries where they kind of sometimes wish they're somewhere else. But for the most part, it's sports and I love it. And even if I wasn't working in sports media, I would still be doing a lot of what I'm doing now, catching up with news, reading articles, watching
Yeah.
interviews, trying to come up with like different things to post on my social media related to that. And I don't say this to boast. I don't say this to show how lucky I am. I say
Mm-mm.
this because I want people to find a profession that when they wake up in the morning, they're excited for the day that's ahead. And after I graduated college, I always told myself that's what I wanted from a job. I wanted a job where I would go to bed at night happy because I had a fulfilling day, and I would wake up
Mhm.
in the morning excited for the day ahead because my job is also my passion. And thankfully, knock on wood, right now I feel that way. I do. I'm excited for every day. Days and months have gone by so fast. I can't believe we're at the tail end of 2023. It still feels like 2020 or 2021 sometimes. But I do feel that way, and I am grateful that I feel that way, and I hope that people also get to feel that way at certain points in their lives because it's a great feeling.
Awesome. So, Guru, I'd like to follow up on this, this style of conversation that we're having right now. Doris Burke, one of these great commentators in the NBA, mentioned in JJ's podcast, JJ Reddick, the old man and the tree, no? Sabi niya, how can we as media do coverage better so that the casual fan will see things that they usually miss out on? 'Di ba? And it
Mm.
relates to what Matt said, 'di ba? Kasi nakikita natin mga headlines, trades, right? Or injuries, or this highlight, right? And it's always about LeBron or Wemby nowadays, right? Navs, I think I want to throw you that question. No? Sometimes I see your post as well. It goes deeper, it goes deeper to what you usually see, no? How do you make it to a point to write about things that isn't just the headlines, isn't just the narratives that people usually see, 'di ba? Sometimes you
Yeah.
break it down to the minuscule details or even the players, the role players themselves, no? And how
Right.
this Jaime Jaquez Jr. worked out with Jimmy Butler or whatnot, right? So something like that, right? How do you do that?
Well, the first thing I think that's worth remembering is different people enjoy sports in different ways. So,
Oh, that's
for
fair.
example, let's say there are three people in the room. Now, one person will probably enjoy sports for the drama and narratives aspect of it. Will
Mm.
LeBron finally win his first ring back in 2012, for
Mm.
example? Or will Steph Curry become the greatest point guard ever in NBA history? So
Yep.
I've learned
Mm.
over time that people have different ways of enjoying sports. Now, the second person in the room might enjoy basketball for how the game is played, the X's and O's. Okay, what kind of screens are they going to use to get their best
Yep.
shooters open?
Yep.
What kind of zone defense is the coach going to use to change the momentum of a game? What kind of off-ball actions are a team going to use compared to just isoing a player all the time? And then there's some people like a third person in the room who might like the toxic side of it. The choker naman yan eh, walang kwenta yan, overpaid, ganyan. You know how people now that third person, I am not a fan of that. I don't like the toxicity that keyboard warriors in particular feel they can utilize when it comes to criticizing human beings. Um, Now, if the topic is about what these human beings do away from the court, like how they treat other humans, how athletes or how sports personalities act, like when it comes to their roles in societies, uh, their actions when it comes to treating other people, you some would say, na, okay, keep it to sports. Don't bring politics into it, or don't bring the personal lives of the people into it. I think that's so difficult in today's day and age because athletes
I
and
agree.
sports personalities are such role models and
Yep. And they speak.
larger than life
Yeah.
figures that they
Yep.
might not realize it, but they are impacting those who watch them in an everyday basis. So there is a responsibility and level of accountability to what they do away from sports that matters. But
Yeah.
yung mga toxic stuff na gago naman yan eh, choker yan, benta yan without any proof whatsoever. I don't like that part of it. But
Yeah.
for the rest, like the other two people in the room I talked about, we can't gatekeep how people enjoy sports. And I know some people might say, okay, that's being a hypocrite if you're getting mad at those who are criticizing players the way I spoke about. Well, it's different.
Yeah.
If you want to criticize someone for how they play, do it, but don't get personal. You have to remember that they're a human being. If you want to, like, for instance, if you want to criticize LeBron James because he settled for too many jumpers rather than driving to the rim in an important moment of the game, fine,
Yeah.
do that. Keep it within the game, right? Or but don't say stuff like he has no heart, he has no
Yeah.
desire, he's a horrible human
Getting
being.
old. Getting old.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, to be fair, he is getting old. To be fair, like I'm just
Hey,
saying,
father
all
time
of
is
us
an
are
issue.
getting old.
But hey, I
Yeah.
mean, just because being old also means maturity, IQ wise,
Exactly.
you're probably
Exactly.
wiser. So that also works to someone's. It worked for Tom Brady all those years. But
Mm,
yeah, going back to the main point, we can't gatekeep how people enjoy sports unless they get really personal and just violent with how they're
mm-mm.
criticizing someone verbally. Um, but look, we all have our everyday tasks, right? I mean, and watching a whole sports game, it's not like it's that easy to just shell out 2 to 3 hours a day just to watch sports, right? You're taking away so much of your day. So watch sports how you want it, as long as you keep it respectful. And in terms of sports coverage, just know who to follow, know what your vibe is, know what your how you enjoy sports and sports entertainment, and find your people. Essentially, I know this too, like my content isn't content that everyone is going to enjoy. Now I'm thankful because I have people who have told me that they enjoy what I do, the work that I do, and I'm very grateful to them for that and for following my work. But then I also realize there are people who, I'm not exactly their cup of tea, and I'm okay with that because they should enjoy the media people that they want to enjoy. Now, again, as long as it's not violent, as long as it's not abusive, as long as it's not personal and beyond disrespectful, then it should be fine. Do your thing.
There's one thing that I realized watching like the NBA. I mean, I'm not as deep as, for example, si Lance with his Chicago Bulls, no. Good luck pala this season. Pero I guess I realized that there's so many ways to love the just one particular sport, let's say, and even just NBA, there's the drama of it, the beef, the narratives going into the season. Are they going to win the championship? There's even like the jokes and the what was this? I know what was that Bleacher Report, the Game of Thrones kind of parody
Yeah.
that they have of it.
Game of
Um,
Zones.
Game of Zones, yes, exactly. So parang there's so many inside reference too, and that's how people kind of like the game. Some people like the Shaq Kenny, the mid game analysis, halftime stuff. So yeah, that's true. That's very true. No, I guess in terms of since we're looking into basketball in particular, for we've been talking about the whole episode. I guess growing up in the Philippines, what do you think is the core of why Filipinos love basketball so much? As opposed to any other sport that we might, in a way, might have more chance in. So, why do you think basketball is the one that's stuck to so many people for so long, and it's immersed itself into our culture, our universities? Why it's considered so important?
Well, I don't know all of this for a fact, but if I were to
Yeah.
give my opinion, I think there are different factors. Number one is, I think the time when we were under American rule, the Americans introduced the game of basketball to Filipinos, and I think that is something that has um, overlapped generationally. Number two, I think it's also because we're not um, particularly here in Metro Manila, we don't really have a lot of physical land space, right? And because of that, we don't have, in my opinion, a lot of football fields or soccer
Yep.
fields or
Mhm.
other sports. What we do have is a lot of courts where people can play basketball and volleyball, especially in schools, public schools, private schools. You'll see that in a lot of areas in Metro Manila and even in the provinces. And of course, we've had the PBA in the Philippines since 1975. It's the second oldest professional basketball league in the world, if I'm not mistaken. So that's something that a lot of people growing up have always been able to watch. We've always had college basketball. We've had the UAP and NCAA for a while. We've had high school tournaments. Um, and because people loved basketball due to the PBA, eventually when NBA games started being shown on television, people gravitated towards that too, right? Filipinos, people in the Philippines, data has proven that we're one of the most active users of social media in the world, right? And if you look at all major sporting events in America, the NFL, MLB, NBA, even, I'm not sure about this, but even maybe football in Europe, the NBA is actually the league that has always been the most active digitally when it comes to
I
content and
agree.
viewership.
Yep.
And because like people in
Super
the
agree.
Philippines are active on social media, then if you're a sports
Mm.
fan, you will come across a lot
Yeah.
of NBA content online. So
Ganda.
I think the mix of all of that just, you know, adds to why basketball is such a popular sport in the country. Although I would also say that other sports are starting to catch up. In addition to, we've always had our basketball teams compete internationally, Asian Games, SEA Games. Some people watch that growing up too. But then if you look at sports over the last few years, volleyball's rise in popularity has been very apparent. I think you're going to see more and more volleyball fans. I think football's rise has also become apparent, especially with the incredible accomplishment of our Philippine team in the World Cup recently.
Yep.
And of course,
Mhm.
kudos to our television providers for showing other sports as well. Boxing has also always been very popular. I think the NFL is starting to gain more and more popularity in the Philippines too. Tennis. Bianca Bustamante, yesterday it was announced that she has been signed to McLaren's developmental program. So who knows, maybe, and we have
Jeez.
an and we have an F4
Jeez.
Filipino racer as well. So I
Mm.
think I forget his name right now. I should remember that. But perhaps he could add to the popularity of motorsport over the years, with Drive to Survive on Netflix, becoming such a hit for viewers. Maybe that I know that's how I started loving F1. I only started loving F1 like after the pandemic because of Drive to Survive. So maybe that's a sport that gains popularity, right? So as the world continues to
Yeah.
develop in many ways, I think the Filipinos and people in the Philippines will learn to love other sports like they do basketball. And, at the core, basketball will always be something that's special to them as well.
Ganda. Puso. Puso, di ba? Basketball's puso eh, right? Yeah, so Navs, I want to close with this question. And you can answer it as quickly as you can because we're of course lacking in time, no? What's your take on what Draymond Green calls the new media? No, wherein players, man, are taking off the mics. And in the local scene, Jared Dillinger, diba, is also doing his own
Yeah.
podcast, diba? What's your take on that? And as a media professional doing this for 10 years now, how are you feeling? Are you feeling that competition with them? No, or do you feel like it's really a great avenue as well?
Well, first of all, shout out to Jared Dillinger. I'm happy to say that he's someone I consider a friend. And in fact, I know how much preparation and hard work and commitment and dedication he and that group put towards making this podcast. By the way, their podcast is incredible, beautiful. The quality is good. The guests
I
they have
agree.
are good.
I agree.
Conversations are awesome. So people should check out their podcast. And again, shout out to them for doing that. Um, Now, in terms of the new media, I don't look at it as competition. I mean, anyone and their grandmother can start a podcast nowadays. Anyone and their grandfather can start a podcast nowadays. Anyone and their driver, their friend, their someone they haven't met since they were classmates in kindergarten or someone can start a podcast nowadays. I mean, podcasts are popping out left and right. And who are we to tell players you're not allowed to have a podcast just because you're talking about something you do for a living? Well, then maybe I
Yeah.
shouldn't do this interview today where you're talking to me about how I do my media work. I get how some media practitioners, particularly in the States, might feel, oh, these people are doing our jobs for us, and there might be a level of bitterness there to some degree. But they're free to do it if they want to, right? They're they're free to voice out their opinions. They're free to say what they have to say. And just because you're a basketball player, it's not like you're playing basketball 24/7. Just because you're an athlete doesn't mean you're doing your sure you'll work out in the morning, you'll eat right, maybe you'll train again in the afternoon. But then what are you doing the rest of your day, right? Are you supposed to just bum and watch TV shows or play video games and not do podcasts just because you're an athlete? I mean, let people pursue their passions, let them go for what they want. And it's about building communities, it's about building your network. I am grateful to say that, I have people who listen to my podcast, who watch my podcast episodes, who look at my work. And that's a community that I have built over time. The key to anything, not just podcasting, not just working in media, not just being a writer, is consistency. Consistency is a key to success if you want to be successful in whatever you're achieving after. So, if you want to be a podcaster, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a student, whether you're a media practitioner, whether you are, an accountant, a lawyer, whatever you are, right? A salesman, saleswoman. If you want it to be successful and you're willing to put in the time and effort to making it work, then it's going to work. And just because you have a certain title of what you do, it doesn't mean that you're allowed and not
Yep.
allowed to do certain things.
Yep.
I mean, you're not allowed to like commit like crimes, right? You're not allowed to like do stuff that are illegal or like, a disservice to humanity and other human beings. But in terms of like passion projects, why the hell not? I mean, all for everyone in the
Exactly.
world, isn't that what we're all doing? Aren't basketball players just chasing their passions as well by playing basketball? Or aren't you two
Beautiful.
just chasing your passions as well about talking to people about their careers and learning about it? So, it's I know sometimes it feels like the world is very small, but there's enough room and space for a lot of us to succeed in our respective fields. And if we just took the time to help each other out along the way, rather than displaying how superior we are to everyone else, that can go a long way in helping all of us.
Nicely said. Oh, nicely said. Navs, you know what? Thank you so much for joining us in this shoot. Thank you for showing us what it's like to break some news in between, right? Uh, and yeah, thanks for taking us in your career path as a sports multimedia guy. No? Yeah, it's been great. Call of Beat. I hope you guys learned a lesson or two from Naveen Ganglani, sports all around guy. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me,
All right.
Matt and Lance. I appreciate it a lot. Thanks for asking all those questions. Really great. Thanks for delaying the recording a little bit. Sorry about that. Appreciate it. And yeah, just thanks for allowing me to reflect on my journey so far. It was really fun to do so. It felt a little strange at first to be on the other side of things, but it felt good to talk about it. And you two are doing a great job. Keep up the great work. I'm sure you two
Thank you.
will achieve success soon enough as well.
Thank you, Navs. Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Navs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Navs, we won't take up too much of your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Stay safe.